Democracy is under attack. Not one day, but every day. And right now. I'm Harry Dunn, and this is Standing Our Ground. No, I am tired. I am sick and tired of talking about January 6th. And I know that's something that Republicans have always said. Democrats, move on. All y'all do is keep talking about January 6th. You know, it's been 5.5 years, going on 6 years since January 6th happened, and we should be able to move along from it. And I'll tell you why I'm tired of talking about it, because I've had to personally move the goalpost over and over again, to determine what accountability for that day looked like. At first, it was getting everybody convicted and thrown in jail, and that's what it was all about. Then the Supreme Court came along in 2024, July of 2024, and said that Donald Trump has immunity and he's a king. This very great, inept Supreme Court, in all their infinite wisdom, granted Donald Trump immunity. So accountability for the president and his role on January 6th, that's out the window. It just wasn't going to happen, at least as far as criminally. So now we turned to the ballot box and said, hey, how can we hold him accountable now? Well, you know what? He won an election and he was elected president again. So, all right, what does accountability look like now for Donald Trump for January 6th? Because he was responsible for inciting January 6th. He was responsible for it. So now what does accountability look like? All the people that were responsible for it for that day were pardoned. And now they hold no responsibility, no accountability for it. And we all knew that. That happened. The pardon happened in 2025. So now I'm still tired of talking about it from 2025. So now what does accountability look like? At least just remembering the truth about it. Last week, Judge Mehta in D.C. dismissed the final case in January 6th against the Oathkeepers, seditious conspiracy. So now there is no legal record or legal accountability or any tool for it for holding those people accountable. But yet we're still talking about it. Whoa, let me make it clear. I'm still responding to it. I'm not talking about it. I got to respond to this BS that is consistently happening. So like I just mentioned, last week, Judge Amit Mehta in Washington, D.C. dismissed the last case, the seditious conspiracy trial against the Oathkeepers in Washington, D.C. That happened on Tuesday or Wednesday. And this article now, on August the 7th, just this weekend happened. And this is from the Raw story. David Edwards says, January 6ers demand $1 million each over government trap to create appearance of riot. 12 January 6 defendants sued the federal government Friday afternoon for $1 million, claiming the Capitol riot was a government trap designed to create the appearance of a riot. The complaint filed in federal court in Washington under a law that allows citizens to sue the government for wrongful acts of its employees names 12 plaintiffs whose January 6 prosecutions ended in pardons, acquittals, or dismissals. This is why I have to keep talking about January 6th, because it's not going away. We have the biggest grifter and corrupt president known in the history of the world sitting in the White House, enriching his pockets, lining his friends and his families. And you know what that doesn't stop with? The criminals who he pardoned on January 6th. So these people have filed a lawsuit demanding $1 million against the federal government. And you know who runs the federal government? Donald Trump. And you know who runs the Department of Justice? Todd Blanche. So now it's going to be a test to Todd Blanche now that a lawsuit has actually been filed. It's going to be a test to Todd Blanche to see if he can keep his word saying the slush fund is dead. Because now there's an actual lawsuit. And it's not just talking points now. Will Todd Blanche keep his word? Forgive me for not believing that he will. I am so sick and tired of talking about January 6th because we have failed at getting accountability. But I will never stop talking about it and let them rewrite history about what happened that day. I was there, my coworkers were there, and you all saw with your own eyes what happened that day. And any attempts to rewrite, whitewash, rewrite will not stand, especially on my watch. Hey, y'all, another story I really want to talk about, something that happened last week in Maryland. my hometown, my home state. What happened is Governor Wes Moore called the Maryland House of Delegates back into session for a special session to talk about, debate, and vote on redistricting here in Maryland. A lot of people have been talking about it. There's been a lot of mixed feelings about it, but I'm glad, honestly, that it's happening. Why? Because we are responding to a fight that they, Republicans, started. Also, one thing real quick that it's worth noting, I'm going to read this article to you, but the Maryland Republicans have filed a lawsuit to stop and challenge this redistricting. They are arguing that Andy Harris's seat now is up for grabs, and we, the Democratic Party of Maryland, is going to draw out the representation in Maryland. Now, their lawsuit that they filed almost a day after the ink dried on Wes Moore signing redistricting to be on the ballot in Maryland in November to eliminate the one Republican district and pave way for statistically an 8-0 majority in Maryland. But the lawsuit filed by members of the Freedom Caucus in Maryland, the suit argues that Maryland Democrats missed a July deadline for getting the question on the ballot in November, among other errors. In addition to the Maryland State Board of Elections, it names Governor Wes Moore, Attorney General Anthony Brown, State Elections Administrator, and Secretary of State as defendants. Quote, they hurt due process. They hurt people's rights to weigh in on this, Morgan said on Friday morning. They blatantly missed the dates and tried to cover it up with some legal language. So right now they are arguing that Maryland is Democrats passed this illegally, and they're talking about technicalities. Now, normally I wouldn't be advocating for this, and I think this is one of the things that Bill Ferguson was talking about in the Senate, that we need to make sure people have the rights and representation and all this stuff. So normally I wouldn't be for this. However, I applaud Governor Wes Moore for taking a stand in this, because this is a response. This isn't just him just saying, you know what, let's just get rid of all Republicans. This is a response to what Donald Trump has done to attack his democracy, our democracy, to try to cement him a majority, because they can't win free and fair elections. So they try to make them unfair and the chip stacked against people and make it harder for people to vote. Now, if you remember in Ohio, they redistrict in Ohio, and they shifted 12 Republican, excuse me, it was an increase from 10 Republican seats. Now they redistricted, and now that there are 12 leaning Republican seats, drawing people out of their districts. Also, what happened in Texas, and we saw that specifically with one of the main races that we talked about was Jasmine Crockett. Texas redistricted, and their new maps gave Republicans +5 more seats in Texas. So that's something that, hey, that happened too. So this is a response. Also, what happened in Florida? Florida did the same thing, and we're seeing that that's going to play out in their elections that are coming up soon. But they wiped away 4 Democrat-leaning districts to also just give Republicans a stronger chance to be able to compete in the midterms, and also not just these midterms, but all elections going forward, because they think about long-term power. And a lot of times us Democrats, we get short-sighted on just living in the moment right now. But also we got to talk about what happened in California. And I think that Gavin Newsom laid out the blueprint beautifully. They didn't just do it. And also all the Republican states that I just named, none of them put it up to the voters. They, in their legislatures, decided that they are going to do it and not let the voters have a say. In California, you know what Gavin Newsom said? I'm going to let the voters decide. And you know what? It was called Prop 50. It was on their ballot. It was a ballot initiative. And you know what? It passed overwhelmingly. Majority of the people in the state, the people that voted for it, were supportive of the redistricting. And that's what Wes Moore is doing. And I applaud him for putting it up to the voters and not just letting the legislature decide. Let the people actually decide. And that will be on the ballot in November. So I'm curious to see what the turnout's going to be. I think it's going to pass. I hope that with the legal challenges, with the technicalities, with missing a date or deadline, it doesn't come back to haunt them. Because as we saw, that's what happened in Virginia. Virginia passed the same thing. Where the voters, they put it up to the voters, but it got overturned by the state Supreme Court due to some technicalities, and not just saying, hey, they couldn't do this. It was technicalities, whether it be dates or procedural errors, but not an actual merit-based argument. So curious to see how that goes. Kudos to Wes Moore. Kudos to the Maryland legislature for getting this done. Because the seat that they are eliminating is somebody that I can't stand. His name is Representative Andy Harris. Andy Harris is an insurrection supporter. He just makes my skin crawl. He doesn't support the police officers that defended the Capitol on January 6th, and he stands with the rioters. So, I am all for getting Andy Harris out of office. And if this is what it takes, then you know what? It's personal for me, and I am happy to do everything I can to help out future Representative Schwartz down on Maryland's first congressional district down there on the Eastern Shore. So in the meantime, we got an election to win down there, and I will be campaigning against Andy Harris. But good job, Maryland, because it's a response to what's going on now. In normal times, we wouldn't be advocating for this, but we are not living in normal times, and it's time to fight fire with fire. So with that said, good job, Maryland. Let's go kick Andy Harris out of Congress. Hey, y'all, this next story is a bit of a head scratcher, but if you know anything about this administration and the way that they carry themselves, it will leave you scratching your head until the end of time. This story has been getting a lot of attention as ICE, Immigration, Customs, and Enforcement, which I'm all for abolishing, by the way, will release body camera video only when it sees the agency's best interest. That's coming from the new policy. Now, obviously, a lot of things have been happening with ICE, whether we're talking about the murders of Renee Nicole Good or Alex Preddy in Minnesota, and several other incidents across the United States where they have just been vigilantes for the Trump administration. Rules don't apply to them. Accountability, oversight does not happen to them. They don't have to wear name tags. They can wear jeans and sweatpants. They don't have to wear badges. They don't have to identify themselves. They're showing up in masks, and they're just terrorizing our communities. The opposite of what law enforcement is supposed to do. They're supposed to protect and serve. But when ICE started, it was shortly after 9/11, and one of the main focuses of it was about immigration. ICE has evolved from that, and they are no longer serving the mission of what they were established to do, which is why when I was running for Congress, said is that we need to abolish it, not overhaul it or change it, abolish it. Now we can get back to having discussions about immigration and what humane enforcement looks like. It's sad to say in the year 2026 that we're still talking about law enforcement officials treating people with dignity and humanity. That's one of the things that I did when I was a police officer. It was always about treating people with respect, even when they were criminals. Just see the human in them, and they still were deserving of dignity. But ICE is saying by the end of September, every officer will have body worn cameras. Now this has been talked about and desired for such a long time. Congress was withholding passing the continuing resolution because the continuing resolution to fund the government, to keep the government open, was having funding for ICE in it. And the Democrats stood strong and they dug in and said, we are not going to fund the government while you are continuing to pay ICE, which is operating as Donald Trump's private militia. I'm glad that they did that. The problem about this policy, though, I'm going to read you something, and it says the policy says ICE will promptly release video of shootings and other encounters in which its agents cause death or serious injury only after determining, and this is the interesting part, it's in the best interest of the agency to do so. So that gives the director of ICE the discretion to release anything that makes ICE look bad. And we know they take no accountability or no responsibility for any of their actions. So this body camera releasing the program that they're running, it's literally a nothing burger, and nothing is going to come from it. No accountability is going to come from it. Another thing, taxpayer money is funding these body cameras. So taxpayers will still be in the dark about something that they're funding and have no ability to access it unless the director of ICE says that it is in the best interest for ICE to release this footage. It's despicable, and we need to continue to push back against it. And once Democrats take back the House and hopefully the Senate in November, in January when they are sworn in, we need to abolish ICE and no more funding to ICE. They cannot continue to operate with the impunity that they have been getting. And it is time once and for all to hold them accountable and force Donald Trump to come up with a comprehensive immigration plan that actually makes sense, and stop deporting wait staff, stop deporting farmers, stop deporting hotel workers and maids and cleaners and industry workers and construction workers. Let's get the criminals out. Let's get the worst of the worst. The child sex traffickers or the murderers or the gang members and the drug dealers. I think everybody in America, Democrat or Republican, is all for that. But what we're not for is the way that the ICE is carrying out their operations heavy-handed with impunity. And it has to stop now.